1 in 5 suffer.
Erase the stigma.
Brain difference is not a crime.
Mental health isn't just your problem.
It's our problem.
And now, Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave.
Welcome to Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave.
Welcome.
Now, Marla's a little bit behind. Let me explain. Marla, where are you right now?
I'm in Florida, and I am dealing with all things that involve love and service to my dad.
Well, Marla's taking care of her dad down in Florida, so we wish her well, and we wish them well down there in, I was going to say in the heat, but it's pretty hot here, but not quite as hot and humid as it is there.
First of all, shame on you. Alligators are mad. Everyone's mad. What you're saying.
The alligators are even upset.
In the heat. Oh, in the heat. You sound like a little California boy who's ordering a latte, frappuccino thing.
Well, we'll take that.
Suffering.
We'll take that. We want to remind you to text the word GIVE, G-I-V, to 818-698-1021. That's 818-698-1021. To support our $1 Today Keeps the Stigma Away campaign. And I also want to say this. About a week and a half ago, and I failed to mention this on the last show, the new 988 suicide and mental health crisis line went live nationwide. Just like we have 911, now if you're having a mental health crisis, an emotional issue, or you have suicidal ideation, you can dial 988, and it takes you right to the services that you need. Someone will answer the phone call and help you throughout your crisis. Now, again, it might not be working very well in every state, so call and then get on SAMHSA. That's the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. They have a website. Let them know if it's working or not. They'll be there to help you. We are honored. That's a lot of stuff I've been saying already. To have Jamie Denbo as our guest today. She's the co-executive for the longest-running scripted primetime show, currently airing on ABC, which is Grey's Anatomy. And like everyone else, she has a story to tell. And we'll get to it when we come right back.
Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave and NAMI San Fernando Valley believe it doesn't take much to make life a little better for our neighbors, coworkers, friends, our family members, even our children who suffer with mental illness. When you support our $1 Today Keeps the Stigma Away campaign, you are doing your part to erase the stigma surrounding mental illness. For just $1 today, or $1 a day for 1 week, just $7, we can look forward to a future that does not include the unfortunate and uncomfortable stares, bullying, and the subsequent isolation that our loved ones who suffer with brain differences deal with. Text the word GIVE, that's G-I-V-E, to 818-698-1021 to donate. $1 today keeps the stigma away. Brought to you by Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave and NAMI San Fernando Valley.
As promised, we welcome to the show Jamie Denbo.
Welcome, Jamie.
She has a fan crowd with her at all times.
Thank you. It is so nice to be here.
Amazing.
I didn't hear you, but I saw the delay. I saw the whoop whoop hands.
Yeah, I mean, they went with the applause, so I had to do it.
So tell us what it means to be the co-executive producer on Grey's Anatomy.
Well, it is an extremely fancy and important title that really means I'm one of the writers.
There you go.
There is sort of a system of titling the writers that kind of has to do with how long you have been a writer in this business, not even on this show. So I came in at a co-executive producer level because I had been a writer on other shows. So I kind of skipped some steps in the writer's room, but everybody has been very cool about it.
All right. So tell us a little bit about how you, the matriculation through the entertainment industry.
Well,
because we could talk about your job-ish, statistics for the entire show and then some.
Listen, I have been around. I have been around. I have flirted with a lot of places and jobs in this particular industry.
I love it.
I don't think a lot of mentally healthy people go into show business, so it is appropriate and on brand to talk about that. I mean, I like a lot of people who wind up in this business, creating media, art, wanting to express some sort of putting some cool content out into the world, come from places of performance. They start as wanting to be performers, and actually I wanted to be an actor. I wanted to scream and yell and get all the attention and applause and love that I could possibly harness, and hold everybody hostage to watch me and applaud for me. And I did that as long as I could, and I made it as far as being a career guest star, which is really, I don't even say it, it's just someone who bounced around from acting job to acting job to acting job, tiny little things. No, you will not recognize me from anything. If you do, I am impressed. But one episode of everything good and bad is how I put it.
I get that.
And it was a great experience. But because I also came from improv comedy, which is something I found in my 20s, I was always writing.
Jamie.
Yes.
Me too. The groundlings.
So here we are, right? So I consider myself someone who was both a writer and a performer all at the same time. And because of that, I was able to eventually sharpen my writing skills to a point where I could use them to work more as a writer, and that's kind of where I am.
Yeah, so I actually, go ahead, Marla. Go ahead.
So coming from the background of improv, which we all know, but then thinking about what Grey's Anatomy is, that's kind of like, that's a big jump. It's like my brain goes, wow, like how did you go from
it's a super
improv to that?
It is a very weird jump, and and I'll take you through it as quickly as I can, without going too because, so one of the jobs I had as an improvising actor was, of course, at the Renaissance Festival.
There you go.
Which you may or may not be familiar with, but as you're,
that's pretty good.
Yeah. So Renaissance festivals employ a lot of improvisers. Okay, so I started doing that in my 20s. Eventually I moved out of the Renaissance Festival and wound up doing theme park work, and then wound up doing regular performance improv, more stuff that you came out of the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater, which is now more of a recognizable name. But when I was doing it, they didn't even have their own theater at the time. So I always took that Renaissance Festival experience with me because I thought it was such a crazy thing for me. I always said, for those of you, I don't know, well, actually, you guys are the right age. Private Benjamin at the Renaissance
Absolutely.
Festival, right? So I was like a total Jewish American princess who wound up by mistake at the Renaissance Festival because I thought it was Shakespeare in the Park.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
So I get this job. I don't know what it is, and it was totally fascinating to me. And I was blown away by this range of human beings that made a life on the Renaissance Festival circuit. Yeah. I knew that I would always want to do something with that story.
Right.
Cut to almost 25 years later, I have the opportunity to produce and create a show that ran for one season. It was on Lifetime. It did not belong on Lifetime, but you can find it on Amazon and buy the whole season, 10 episodes for one. But it was called American Princess, and it chronicled a Jewish American princess who falls into the Renaissance Festival backwards by mistake.
Right.
There you go.
So I made a dramedy. It was a 1-hour dramedy. That show.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you so much. Nobody saw it. Thank you so much. No one saw it. You should see it. But
we're all gonna see it tonight.
Thank you so much. It's a lot of fun. I thought it was pretty fun. It was a great experience, but it really did make that leap into, I guess she can write dramedy. And really, I mean, Grey's is really more of a drama, but there are comic elements. So at the time, I was lucky enough that they were looking for a comedic voice who actually had the skills to put together that kind of story. And I sort of came in through the back door in that way. So it did actually come from the improv experience, just by a very secure.
Yeah, well, I mean, on Grey's, it's real life. It just happens to be set in that hospital setting, but every life has that comedic moment from time to time. So, yeah.
In the words of the great 𝘵𝘦𝘦𝘱𝘴, who was a mentor of mine, who created Orange is the New Black and Weeds and produced American Princess, which you can buy on Amazon for $20 and see the whole season. She always says, life is a comedy, not a tragedy. And listen, she made prison at times hilariously funny.
That's true.
And also gave it the pathos, right? So that's sort of how I wound up at Grey's.
So then, now take us back to that time when, as a teenager, we all have that feeling of angst. When did you recognize that yours was a little bit more than just the normal teenage angst?
I was acutely lonely as a child.
Wow.
I was acutely lonely, and
Were you an only child?
I was an only child. My parents were in a complicated marriage. I don't know a marriage that's not complicated,
That's
but
true.
they were in a complicated marriage. Just to set the stage for it, my mother grew up in Montreal, Canada. My dad grew up just outside of Philly in Camden, New Jersey. They grew up in very tight-knit Jewish neighborhoods surrounded by cousins and siblings and family.
Yeah, for sure.
For whatever, and they actually talk very, very reverently about their childhood. It was very impactful for them.
Yeah.
My childhood looked nothing like this. I think there's a part of them, and by the way, none of this is blaming my parents. My parents,
yeah, for sure.
Right.
This is about them, I think, truly taking for granted that kind of childhood would just happen, despite the fact that when they married, they immediately moved to Massachusetts to a little lighthouse town where that had its own system of roots. Even the Jewish community, and we're everywhere. We were in Boston too. I know it's weird. But it was a very tight-knit community, and it was very rooted. And my parents were sort of the expats. They came there, and they only had each other.
Yeah.
And in a way, there was sort of an us versus them mentality.
No,
that
I get it.
I don't even know that they would understand what I was saying right now. But I can assure you that, like, I did always feel different when I realized that the kids I was around, all their grandparents grew up together.
Yeah.
And I did not have that, and I was an only child.
And a lot of times, if I can jump in there, it sounds like what you're describing is, as parents, we try to protect our kids from the outside world. And basically what you were saying is, once you moved to that small town, that protection also was a form of isolation, so to speak.
It was very isolating for me. And my experience was that there were these two people, and as adolescence happened and I started to rebel in my own typical teenage ways, I felt incredibly alone. I can only, and my parents had their own difficulties in their marriage. They have overcome them. They are doing great. They're in Hawaii right now.
There you go. Oh, lucky
and
them.
I have made peace. They have made peace. There's been a lot of peacemaking. But I can say that I remember this loneliness, and what I didn't understand because I didn't have a sibling to reflect it is I felt there was something acutely wrong with me. That there was and I didn't understand that other people didn't feel that. So when I would reach out to friends, peers, my piano teacher, I remember I had this memory surface the other day where I was like, I remember I wound up, there's music.
No, keep talking.
That was exciting. No, it was kind of nice. Well, I said piano and music
there
came
you go.
in, so I guess I just summoned
Your
it.
magic like that.
I made it happen. But I remember it was a time when I was feeling really badly, and I was looking for someone to speak to. And I wound up having this odd moment with my piano teacher and walking out of there going like, I found her. I found someone to talk to who's going to get me.
Friend.
And then I went back for my next lesson, and she was all business. She was about piano, and I was like, I really am alone. There's something very wrong.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, as you can see, we're going to continue this great conversation because, as Jamie pointed out, there's music in the background indicating it's time to actually take a little break. We'll be right back. More with Jamie Denbo.
It's time for the Mental Health Minute with Marla and Dave.
Cognitive behavioral therapy is a form of psychological treatment that combines two types of therapy. Cognitive therapy, which examines the things you think, and behavioral therapy, which examines the things you do. Grounded in the understanding of the relationship between how you think, feel, and act, and how each influences one another. This type of therapy is typically conducted by a licensed mental health professional. CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy, is based on a few core principles according to the American Psychological Association. Those principles include psychological problems are partly due to unhelpful thought patterns. Psychological problems exist in part because of learned patterns of unhelpful behavior. Psychological problems can be combated by learning new coping methods to deal with the aforementioned thought patterns and behaviors. What's interesting about this form of therapy is that by intervening in one of these areas, your thoughts, emotions, or actions, you can expect to see changes in the other two as well. Types of CBT include dialectical behavioral therapy, rational emotive behavior therapy, acceptance and commitment therapy, and also exposure and response prevention If you feel that you or someone you care about could benefit from cognitive behavioral therapy, please seek a licensed professional for help. And this message is brought to you by Mental Health Mondays with Marla and Dave. I never do anything without thinking about it first.
Marla is a feeler.
I basically live my personality on my sleeve.
When Marla and Dave together, it's like a match dancing with a firecracker.
All right, Jamie, Marla, we're back as promised. Now,
Yes,
Marla,
we are back, but
I apologize.
But wait. Before we go on, I have to ask Jamie and Tony, is it aforementioned or aforementioned?
Aforementioned.
Did I say aforementioned?
Don't
Which
ask
one
me.
did I
Jamie
say?
said. What Jamie said.
Of course. We always defer to the writer.
Jamie's right. Okay, so anyway, go ahead, Jamie. Continue with your story.
Oh, listen, my story is I love listening to that little reminder about what you were just the ad about cognitive behavioral therapy, because my neural pathways were very, very, very programmed to make me I was prone to feeling alone, unloved. Validation was external. It was just, that was where I got my
sense of self-worth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it stayed with me for too many years.
And when did you get to a crisis point?
Wait, do you mind
go ahead,
me
Marla. I'm
asking-
sorry.
Do you mind me asking when this became a solo focus for you career-wise? At what time in your life?
You know, I was performing as a child in kiddie theater as much as I could. It was the only thing. It was the thing that I loved.
Now, were your parents driving it at that time?
They were. It wasn't like it wasn't a Mama Rose stage mama situation, because there wasn't that opportunity in suburban Boston.
Okay.
If there had been, I would have wanted it.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the kind of landscape that existed. And for me, it's again, like, it's Red Sox Nation, y'all. Like, it's sports, and you're a weirdo if you're into the arts.
You said Red Sox Nation.
Yes.
I love it.
I mean, in Boston, it's like art is sort of
the Sox, you got the Celtics.
I mean, unless the collegiate Boston is something different, and that's not the Boston I knew growing up. I knew Red Sox, Celtics, Southie, busing, badness. Like, that's what I knew. And like, being an actor or wanting to do musical theater, and that I didn't have a lot of like friends who got that. So it was also very isolating in its weird way. I would actually listen to the Emerson College used to do a Broadway radio show where they would play. I mean, now it's like Sirius, you can listen to the Broadway station all the time. Yeah. But it was that for 2 hours on Saturday mornings, called Standing Room Only. And I was like, that's what I'll tune into and listen to, where I would hear all the latest Broadway stuff.
Wow.
So it was something that I imagined I would get out of town and do, you know, at some point. But I also, I didn't, in some ways I also didn't believe that I was lovable enough or capable enough or talented enough. And so I was my own worst enemy in some ways.
So when did the anxiety really just come to a head, and you really had to do in college?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
We were just chatting before we started the cameras.
Yeah.
College was just a given, which is, listen, a privilege to come from a family where it's like, you're going to college and we're going to pay for it. And it's like,
of course,
okay.
You're going.
But, you know, there was definitely in the 70s and 80s a real sense of, you know, we make the decisions and you shut up and you're grateful for it. And we don't really hear your opinion.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So, you know, was I the kind of kid? I was not an academic kid. I was not a super good student. Hilariously, like, I'm such a perfectionist now, and I'm so, you know, my writing has improved so much. I'd love to go back in time and tell my college professors, like, look, see, I know what I'm doing. I just wasn't ready.
I do this professionally. I told you.
I mean, a lot of them would be like, really? So, you know, I mean, it was probably just, you can tell even college was an idea. Yeah. And what was funny is my parents would use the word college, but and I think in their mind, it was whatever they experienced as their collegiate experience. Yeah. but for me, it was like, is it Revenge of the Nerds? Because that's the only reference point I have, and that looks crazy, and it doesn't look like I fit there, and I don't really get it. So even when I was applying to college, I was also all over the map. I mean, I barely looked at any colleges, and it was like, what's the best one on paper that I got into? And at that point, it was Boston University. I had gotten into their theater program.
Yeah.
And the first weekend during the theater orientation, I had a total breakdown. I think I was thinking, there was a part of me that was either hearing it from my parents or hearing it from myself or from society or from the world. That, like, I can't go and play and run around on the floor and pretend to do Shakespeare for 4 years when I need to get a job when I'm out of here. Like, I was already terrified about 4 years in advance.
You were already looking ahead and panicking.
I panicked, and I immediately switched over to the College of Communication, which is also hilarious because there you just watch movies for 4 years and do not learn anything about getting a job.
So Jamie, I have a question for you, and this is something that's just on my mind when I read, your resume and your credits and who you are.
Mm-hmm.
My thought was I want to ask Jamie, is there a part of your brain, your function, who you are, that is beneficial to you as a creator in your field, a writer, a producer / director, whatever it is that you're bringing to the table creatively? Do you think that you can access parts of your brain with your mental health difference?
I love that question because I think I have two answers. Yes, sometimes very for good. I think some of my people pleasing and desire to be loved, admired, applauded leads me to be a very, very good team player and someone who will go be professional and on time and wants to be a part and wants to succeed. I also think there is a narrative that you have to be mentally ill to be really good at accessing great
those deep places,
comedy and drama. Like being in the comedy world for as long as I was, doing improv comedy in New York when Upright Citizens Brigade was just forming and stuff like that, it was very adjacent to the stand-up scene. And, I think it's not a secret that, some of our comedy greats were tortured.
Absolutely.
Tortured. Especially if you go into, look at all the people on Saturday Night Live, which was really the goal.
Yeah, of course.
Before we had
every troupe was leading that way if it was comedic.
That's right. Yeah. And that was the dream, right? I grew up, and for me, it was like I wanted to be, well, at the time, it was the 80s, so Jan Hooks.
Yeah.
Google it, young people. But, Jan Hooks, right? So, like,
Google.
Right. So it's like but a lot of those people had massive addiction problems, and, from Belushi to all of them. The ones who've passed away.
And like you're saying, it almost goes along with that part of the entertainment process to really, some of these things help you access that authenticity, I guess.
And I also think that, there's a lot of risk taking in comedy, and that goes along with a lot of risky behaviors. Robin Williams, there's a fantastic biography.
That's my favorite. He was one of my favorites.
He was also an only child, so I feel very connected and loving towards Robin. There was a biography that came out about Rob. It's just called Robin, and I forget the author. We'll have to look it up. A few years ago. And you really get a sense of what it is to be an only child when you're really entertaining yourself for many, many long stretches of time, periods of time, but how that can lead to other voices in your head and not being able to really distinguish between positive encouragement and negative voices.
Wow, so we've actually cracked open another huge nut that we will have to continue this line of discussion because so many other things are coming to my mind to ask us questions. But our guest is Jamie Denbo. She's been gracious enough to share with us and her story in a very transparent way in hopes that it can help someone else. And that's why we do what it is that we're doing here at Mental Health Mondays. We'll be right back. All right, Marla, this is your feature. You look a little exhausted there. You've been working, I guess you're on East Coast time, so it's already almost 9:30 at night. Drink a little coffee there and let's see at least a finger dance. Please, something, anything.
I don't have coffee, but I have water. But I want to just say that like Jamie's talented. She can dance.
Okay, so Jamie, you might not know what we're talking about. Usually that music tells us it's poll time, and Marla does a little pole dance.
Oh, fantastic.
Okay, here it goes.
Yes, but she doesn't want our dollars today. Oh, there she goes. Okay. Instead of throwing your dollars at Marla, text GIVE to 818-698-1021. Anyway, our poll question last week was, on average, how many people in the U.S. suffer with bipolar disorder? Your options.
So Dave, before we do this, are we going to honor our guest last week?
I was going to say your options were 1.2 million, 3.8 million, or 5 million. Jamie, what's your guess?
Oh my God!
On average, how many people suffer with bipolar?
Oh, bipolar? The middle one. The middle one. The middle one.
1.2 million, 3.8 million,
3.8.
or 5 million.
3.8.
Marla, what was our guess last week? What was the guess last week? Not
Our
who
guess
our guess
last
was.
week-
What did they guess? What was?
𝘬𝘠𝘦𝘦𝘱𝘴.
And what did she guess? I'm saying, what was her answer?
She guessed wrong.
So she
Equally
joins
as wrong.
Jamie
He's equally
in
as
being
as
wrong
her.
because it is 5 million.
I wanted to do 5
Your
million.
first mind was
Oh.
correct.
Hold on, let me get this out. Equally as wrong as our thespian.
Okay, so we're going to give Jamie.
Wait,
We're going to give her another chance, though.
Yes, we are. Jamie, we're about second chances. Let me just get that out.
All right.
All right.
For your second chance, what percentage of Americans have a diagnosis of schizophrenia? Less than 1%, 8%, or 13%?
I'm going to say less than 1%.
All right. Now, we would tell you whether you are correct or not.
We can't, because it
but
would break the code of our secrecy.
We have to give the audience a chance to guess as well. So we'll reveal this answer like we did the first one next week.
Okay, and I have a reason for thinking that.
Okay, let's hear your reasoning.
I think because it's for years and years it was misdiagnosed. But that's so I have a reason. I'm not just saying
Insight.
I'm not saying it's not a problem. Like
Right.
that's not why.
You're applying some logic to the
Correct.
situation.
Okay,
I
that's
appreciate
it.
that. I appreciate that. And we'll find out next week if she's correct. Be right back. All right, that's how fast we come back. When we say we'll be right
Jamie?
back, we mean it.
I love it.
First of all, Jamie, I want to tell you, thank you for being a good sport. And guess what?
Yeah.
I've never. Here's where you're a pioneer. Spirit hands on the poll question. Never seen it before. You're the first. She was trying to collect the information from the heavens.
That's right. I needed
I
a little
saw that.
divine.
And guess what, Marla? Now we can't even tell that she's wearing headphones because now her hair
I
is
know, my
covering
hair's
the
crazy. Hang
headphones.
on
It's
a
perfect.
And Jamie, it's because of that why black women got weaves. I'm just saying. You want to disguise too? It's the thing.
Well, Jamie,
So
you
like this.
to keep things
so
and turning
good.
back toward the serious, just because we only have a few minutes left in the show.
No, I have so
time
much more
flies,
to say.
right? So I'm glad that you brought up the fact that the entertainment industry almost venerates what we like to call brain differences on this show.
Especially comedy. I think there is this idea that you have to be tortured and you have to be miserable and you have to have suffered to do comedy. And one of the greatest times that has ever been challenged for me personally, because I believed that about myself for a really long time. And I would beat myself up for not being tortured enough. So maybe I should,
Right.
then I was not good enough
Trying
to
to
even
create
be tortured.
struggle. Yeah,
That's right.
We're
And I think that is such a myth. And one of the people who taught me that is speaking of Saturday Night Live was Jane Curtin.
Oh, wow.
Who I had the opportunity to work with so briefly in a bit part in the movie The Heat, which is very, very funny.
Yeah, it's a
But
very
I
funny
got to
movie.
work with her for a few days, and I said to her, I remember talking to her, I said, "What? Why? How? Hang on a second. Everybody else from your comedy class was tortured or addicted or suicidal, something terrible." And I said, "How'd you make it out alive? And you're so brilliant and funny."
yeah.
And she said, "I never bought into that." She said, first of all, when I got married the same year that I got Saturday Night Live.
Wow.
And I was very focused on like my joyful relationship with my husband. They would start bringing out the 8-balls after the recording, and I was out.
Yeah.
She said I wanted to go be with my husband. I didn't subscribe to that kind of that just
Behavior.
wasn't who I was.
Right, yeah.
And because of that, I was like, oh, you can be a healthy, functional human being with great relationships and be in comedy. And I don't think we talk about those people quite enough.
Yeah, so I had one of my friends from the Backstreet Boys was saying, I've been married, to my first wife, still the same wife that I'm with, have a nuclear family that's doing just fine, and no one's ever talking about that.
This is what I'm saying.
We only talk
Right
about
there.
the people who are having problems.
That's right. And it's very important, obviously, to talk about the problems. But I do think specifically with comedy and with art, it becomes, Van Gogh cut off his ear, and it's like, what body part am I going to cut off to succeed? You actually don't have to.
Yeah, you can keep your ears.
Hold on, Jamie. Yeah, hold on. Public service announcement that I've been threatening Dave. There will be there's a body part that could be cut off to do what has to happen. I'm just saying.
Yes, and that will be the end of Dave, not just the comedic Dave, all of Dave. No, and Marla's joking. And nowadays we don't really support any type of violence in public.
That's true.
Just a little.
We joke, but we can joke. We've been here 34 years.
Of course. And then he'd get right up on stand-up stage and just kill it.
No,
Kill it.
I used to stop going to Marla when she to the audience, be in the audience when Marla was doing stand-up, because as soon as she saw my face, whatever she planned to say went out the window, and it was like boom, and I was like, okay.
Dave, it's not that. It's your forehead. It was right there. I was blinded. The light shone on your forehead.
Jamie had no context.
I didn't realize she's an insult comic.
Soon as she said it's your forehead, she looked right at my forehead and then put her head down.
I couldn't possibly.
Thank you. That's why I stopped going.
Jamie,
Anyway,
before we leave, I want to leave you with this levity. You'll get it. Is that all I can get back for childbirth 3 times? Like, come on, man. Let me talk about your forehead. Stop playing. You play too much.
She's allowed.
You get it.
You're supporting her.
Well, listen.
Denigration of my.
The great Don Rickles is
cephalic.
Dead. He's gone. He's passed. There's room for an insult comic in the shape of Marla.
There you go. Well, trust me.
Yeah, you're gonna get it.
Jamie, one more thing before we let you go. Do you play pickleball?
Oh my God. I want to learn. I don't play, but all I hear about is pickleball.
Jamie, I'm going to tell you what.
Fun.
We're giving you an official invitation to the first Loving Beyond Reason mental health pickleball mixed doubles tournament, October 23rd in LA. You will come and you will play. And we'll put you on our team.
I will play.
Well, now you have time to practice. Get ready.
Oh boy. Okay. Just so you know, my athletic skills have not improved since I was singing to myself in my room.
I played and won several games with an 89-year-old woman.
Okay.
And one time we went back to the back line and we were having a little private conversation. She said, and I'm not going to say her name, so this won't be embarrassing. She says, yeah, man, that guy hit the ball at me so hard I peed a little bit in my diaper. I was like, oh. I said, but you still won the point. Good for you. Are you ready?
Fine, I'll wear a diaper. I get the message.
There you go. There is no excuse.
All right.
For whether you think you're athletic or not, pickleball is for everyone.
Amen.
Jamie, we would love to have you. You've been an amazing guest. I promise you, this is not a joke. I will get you the information.
Please
You don't need a partner.
I don't want a partner.
Doubles, but I'll put you with Dave.
Great.
I hope you win.
Great.
And like I said, this show goes by so quickly, especially when we such great conversation.
You bring the diapers, I'll bring the talent.
Well, I guess we both are in a position to bring diapers. Marla's down there in Florida. Anyway,
okay, first of all, you're not getting any of my dance money. Goodbye.
It's all love. It's all love. And Jamie, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And indeed, it's I know you're a hard-working professional, and for you to take the time out to actually spend some time
to talk
with
about
us.
myself, I'm a Leo. Are you kidding? This is great.
But Jamie, can I really just say this before we go? I have to, because I haven't said much because I'm satellite. I know it's horrible with the delay. Thank you so much for being willing to share your story. I'm serious, because there's not a story that is not worth hearing or sharing. And we are one story, one conversation, one word, one sentence at a time, breaking down the stigma that will allow people to talk about their journey and to get help.
Thank you.
So your journey is invaluable on the show to us.
Thank you.
So I was super excited, and thank you so much for coming. Seriously.
Thank you. It means the world. Depression and anxiety can be managed.
There you go. You're not alone,
Nope.
and it's not the end of the world.
Nope.
A great life is out there for all of us. Jamie, thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
See you guys next week. Marla, hurry home, sweetie. Love you.
Whatever. Look at this decor, Dave. Look behind me. Look at this wallpaper. That's what I'm dealing with.
Yeah,
Look at the
take it
wallpaper.
in,
Okay.
soak it in, and enjoy it. Learn something. Anyway, see you guys next week.
Bye.